The Hound was supposed to kill traitors. That was what the kingdom believed. That was why the guard stopped speaking whenever it appeared. The beast belonged to the Alpha King himself, a creature raised on blood, battle, and absolute loyalty. Yet for 6 days, it did not hunt. It did not patrol. It did not obey. Instead, it lay motionless outside the cell of a forgotten Omega girl awaiting execution. Some claimed the beast sensed her guilt. Others whispered something far more dangerous, that it was protecting her. Inside the dungeon, Lyra Ashmore sat alone in darkness, counting the hours until death. She had lost her freedom, lost her reputation, lost everyone she trusted. But she had not lost the strange feeling growing stronger every time the enormous black hound looked at her through the iron bars. As if it knew her, as if it remembered her. Above the dungeon, the Alpha King ruled a kingdom that feared him more than war itself. Below it, destiny waited behind rusted iron. And neither of them knew that before the next moonrise, one impossible encounter would begin a chain of betrayals, obsessions, and heartbreak powerful enough to shake an entire kingdom. Because some bonds are stronger than loyalty, stronger than power, stronger than fate itself. And the first sign of that bond was a hound that refused to leave. The dungeon beneath Blackthorn Palace had forgotten what sunlight looked like. Cold stone walls stretched endlessly through darkness. Water dripped from ancient ceilings. Chains rattled whenever distant prisoners shifted in their sleep. The air smelled of rust, damp earth, and hopelessness. Lyra Ashmore sat against the far wall of her cell. Her wrists were bruised. Her silver-blonde hair hung tangled around her face. The thin prison dress offered little protection against the cold that seemed to seep directly from the stone itself. At first, she counted the days. Then the hours. Then the heartbeats. Eventually, she stopped counting altogether. Because counting only made death feel closer. The kingdom had already decided who she was. A traitor.
A spy.
A danger to the crown. No one cared whether any of it was true. No one cared that she had spent months begging for someone to investigate the accusations. The court wanted a scapegoat, and she had been weak enough to become one. A distant howl echoed through the dungeon. Several guards stiffened immediately. Fear crossed their faces. Not because of prisoners, because of what approached. Heavy footsteps. Slow, deliberate, powerful. A massive black hound emerged from the darkness. Its fur looked almost liquid beneath torchlight. Golden eyes glowed like molten metal. The beast belonged to only one person. The Alpha King. Conversations died instantly. The hound ignored every guard, ignored every prisoner, ignored every scent. It walked directly to Lyra's cell, then stopped. Silence swallowed the corridor. The animal stared through the bars, directly at her. Lyra's pulse quickened. She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt something she could not explain. Recognition. The beast lowered itself onto the stone floor and remained there. Hours passed. It did not move. Night arrived. It remained. Morning came. Still there. By the third day, rumors spread through the palace. By the fourth, servants whispered that the prisoner must possess forbidden magic. By the fifth, even soldiers avoided the corridor. By the sixth, the entire kingdom seemed to be talking about the Omega girl protected by the king's beast. Far above the dungeon, Caelan Draven stood before a war table covered in maps. Storm clouds rolled beyond palace windows. Lightning illuminated sharp features carved by years of hardship. The Alpha King looked less like a ruler and more like a weapon-given human form.
Tall.
Broad-shouldered.
Cold.
Dangerous. Every noble feared him. Every enemy hated him. And none of them knew how exhausted he truly was. A commander bowed his head. Your Majesty, the Hound has again refused patrol duty. Caelan's jaw tightened. Again? 6 days now. Silence followed. The king rarely questioned his animal's instincts. The beast had saved his life countless times. Yet this behavior made no sense. Finally, Caelan turned. Take me to the dungeon. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. No one argued. Minutes later, the Alpha King descended into darkness. Every prisoner lowered their gaze. Every guard stood straighter. Fear followed him like a shadow. Then he saw it. The Hound, lying before a prison cell, motionless, watching a single Omega girl. Caelan's eyes narrowed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Hound rose. The entire corridor froze. The beast walked between Caelan and Lyra. Not aggressively. Not defensively.
Protectively.
As if guarding her from everyone, even him. Confusion flickered across the king's face. It vanished quickly. But Lyra saw it. Their eyes met. Everything else seemed to disappear. The dungeon.
The guards.
The darkness.
Gone.
Only those eyes remained. Ice blue. Ancient. Lonely. Lyra had imagined monsters when she thought of the Alpha King. Instead, she saw something far more dangerous. A wounded man hiding inside a monster's skin. Caelan stared at her. Something stirred deep within him. A strange feeling. Familiar. Impossible. As though he had known her before. As though some forgotten memory stood just beyond reach. Neither spoke. Neither understood. Yet neither looked away. Finally Caelan turned. The sensation lingered. Unsettling him. Following him. Haunting him. The Hound immediately returned to its position outside Lyra's cell.
Guarding.
Waiting. Watching. That night the Alpha King slept for the first time in days. And for the first time in years. He dreamed. Snow fell beneath a silver moon. A young girl knelt beside a wounded black wolf. Tiny hands trembling. Soft voice whispering comfort. The wolf should have attacked. Instead it stayed. Because the girl was smiling. Because she was not afraid. Because she looked at a monster and saw something worth saving. Caelan woke before dawn. His heart hammering. The dream felt real. Too real. A forgotten memory clawed at the edges of his mind. Then he remembered the girl's face. And cold shock flooded his veins. Because the girl standing beneath the snow had Lyra Ashmore's face. The dream refused to leave him. Even after sunrise painted the eastern mountains in pale gold. Even after advisors filled his throne room with reports of border disputes, trade negotiations, and military preparations. Even after another long day of ruling a kingdom that demanded strength while draining every piece of humanity from the man wearing the crown. The dream remained.
Snow. Moonlight.
A frightened girl. A wounded wolf. And those eyes. The same eyes that now belonged to Lyra Ashmore. Caelan sat upon the Iron Throne, listening to nobles argue. Their voices sounded distant. Muted. As though he stood underwater. Because for the first time in years, something had disturbed the walls around his heart. Something he could not control. Something he could not understand. Across the room stood Lady Seraphine Valeries. Beautiful. Elegant. Dangerous. The future queen according to nearly every noble in the kingdom. She watched Caelan carefully. Noticed the distraction. Noticed the silence. Noticed the unusual tension behind his eyes. And Seraphine hated mysteries she could not solve. Your Majesty. One of the council members stepped forward. The prisoner should be executed immediately. Several nobles nodded. The evidence is overwhelming. The matter is settled. Justice requires action. Caelan's fingers tightened against the throne. For reasons he could not explain, those words irritated him. The evidence. The witnesses. The accusations. Everything surrounding Lyra's case suddenly felt wrong. Too clean. Too perfect. Like a painting created specifically to be believed. Delay the execution. Silence exploded across the chamber. Several nobles stared. One nearly dropped his documents. Seraphine's smile froze. Only for a second. But Caelan noticed. The king slowly rose from his throne. The investigation will continue. Your Majesty. That was not a suggestion. The room immediately fell silent. Nobody challenged him further. Nobody dared. Yet whispers followed him as he left. The king could feel them spreading. Questions. Rumors. Speculation. The first crack in certainty had appeared. And people feared uncertainty almost as much as they feared the Alpha King himself. That evening, Caelan returned to the dungeon. Officially, he was reviewing evidence. Unofficially, he wanted answers. The Black Hound still guarded the cell. 6 days had become 7. The beast lifted its head as Caelan approached. Golden eyes watched him, waiting, almost expectant. Lyra sat near the bars this time. Her expression hardened immediately when she saw him. Fear was there, but so was anger. The kind born from betrayal. The kind created by injustice. You came back. Her voice was quiet. Caelan stopped several feet away. You sound surprised. A bitter laugh escaped her. Kings don't usually visit prisoners twice. Caelan studied her. She looked exhausted. Yet somehow she had not broken. Most people in prison this long lost something.
Hope, dignity, strength.
Lyra still possessed all three, and that fascinated him. Tell me what happened. Her eyes narrowed. You read the reports. I want a version. Silence stretched between them. Then she laughed again, this time without humor. My version doesn't matter.
Why?
Because nobody listened the first time. The answer struck harder than expected. For a moment Caelan said nothing, because he understood that feeling. More than anyone realized. The loneliness of speaking while nobody truly heard. Eventually Lyra looked away. The torchlight flickered across her face. Someone wanted me gone.
Who?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be sitting in a cage. Caelan found himself almost smiling. Almost. The sharp response surprised him. It also felt honest. More honest than most nobles who stood in his court every day. The visits continued. Day after day. Question after question. Conversation after conversation. At first they felt like interrogations. Then discussions. Then something neither wanted to define. Because definitions made things dangerous. Caelan noticed changes. Subtle at first. Whenever he sat near her cell, the constant tension inside his chest eased. The nightmares became less severe. The rage inside his wolf quieted. The endless storm in his mind softened. For years he had lived with darkness. Now, somehow, her presence pushed it back. And that terrified him. Because dependence was weakness. Attachment was weakness. Love destroyed people. He knew that better than anyone. One night, everything changed. Rain battered the palace above. Thunder rolled across the mountains. The dungeon trembled beneath the storm. Caelan arrived later than usual. Something felt wrong immediately. The king's breathing was uneven. His movements sharper. More aggressive. His eyes darker than normal. Lyra noticed it instantly. The hound noticed too. The animal rose uneasily. A low growl vibrated through the corridor. Caelan pressed a hand against the stone wall. The memories had returned. Not dreams. Memories.
Blood.
Fire. Screams. His family's massacre. The night everything was taken from him. For years he controlled the panic. Controlled the nightmares. Controlled the grief. Tonight control shattered. His breathing became ragged. His vision blurred. The dungeon seemed to close around him. Walls shrinking. Darkness tightening. The Alpha King looked suddenly less like a ruler and more like a man drowning. Lyra's heart clenched. Every instinct told her to stay back. This was the most dangerous man in the kingdom. A king capable of ending lives with a single command. Yet she saw something else.
Pain.
Pure pain. Without thinking, she moved toward the bars.
Caelan.
The name escaped before she could stop herself. His eyes snapped toward her. Shock flickered across his face. No one called him that. Not anymore. Not for years. Slowly Lyra reached through the iron bars. The distance between them felt impossibly small. Dangerously small. Then her fingers touched his hand. Everything stopped. The storm. The panic. The memories. The fear. A strange warmth spread through both of them.
Soft.
Ancient. Familiar. Caelan froze. His wolf went completely silent. For the first time in years, absolute peace filled his mind. Lyra felt it too. A connection deeper than attraction. Deeper than curiosity. Something older. Something written into fate itself. Neither understood what was happening. Neither wanted to pull away. For several endless seconds, the world disappeared. Only the touch remained. Only the warmth. Only the impossible bond forming between them. Then footsteps echoed from the corridor. The moment shattered. Lyra immediately withdrew her hand. Caelan stepped back. Reality rushed in again. Yet neither could forget what they had felt. Because now they knew. Something was changing. Something dangerous. Something neither crown nor prison could stop. Hidden in the shadows above the dungeon staircase, Lady Seraphine watched everything. Every glance. Every movement. Every second of contact. And for the first time in years, fear entered her heart. Not fear of Lyra. Not fear of the king. Fear of losing control. Because she recognized what was happening long before either of them did. The king was beginning to care. And a king in love was far more dangerous than a king at war. Seraphine's beautiful face remained calm as she turned away. But hatred burned behind her smile.
Cold.
Patient. Merciless. By midnight she summoned her most trusted servant. A sealed packet of forged documents slid across the table. A plan years in the making began moving into place. If the Omega survives, Seraphine whispered, everything is at risk. The servant bowed. What would you have me do, my lady? Seraphine's smile returned. Beautiful enough to hide a knife. Make certain she never leaves that dungeon alive. And somewhere deep beneath the palace, the king's black hound suddenly lifted its head and growled into the darkness. As if it sensed danger approaching. The kingdom began whispering before dawn. Whispers moved faster than armies. Faster than truth. Faster than reason. By sunrise, servants carried rumors through palace corridors. By noon, merchants discussed them in crowded marketplaces. By nightfall, nobles spoke of little else. The Alpha King was protecting a traitor, and nobody understood why. Storm clouds gathered above Blackthorn Palace as if the heavens themselves sensed approaching disaster. Inside the royal court, tension thickened the air. Every noble seemed armed. Not with swords. With secrets. With ambition. With lies. Caelan Draven entered the throne chamber like a living storm. Conversations died instantly. The room stood. Fear still obeyed him. But respect had begun changing. Fear could control a kingdom. Doubt could destroy one. The king crossed the chamber and sat upon the iron throne. Cold steel reflected torchlight behind him, like claws waiting to close around prey. The investigation into Lyra Ashmore will continue. The announcement struck the room like lightning. Immediate protests erupted. Your Majesty, the evidence is undeniable. The prisoner confessed. She never confessed. Caelan's voice cut through the room. Sharp. Precise.
Deadly.
Silence followed. Several nobles lowered their heads. Others exchanged nervous glances. Only one person remained perfectly composed. Lady Seraphine Valeries. She stood near the throne dressed in silver silk. Beautiful. Elegant. Poisonous. Her smile never wavered, which was exactly why Caelan distrusted it. Perhaps, Seraphine said softly, His Majesty simply wishes to ensure justice. The words sounded supportive, but every experienced politician in the room recognized the trap. She was placing responsibility directly onto him. If Lyra proved guilty, the kingdom would blame the king. If she proved innocent, the court would blame itself. Either way, uncertainty spread. And uncertainty weakened crowns. Caelan recognized the move. Yet before he could respond, another noble stepped forward. A witness. One of many. The man swore he had seen Lyra meeting enemy spies. Swore he had evidence. Swore upon his bloodline. The testimony sounded convincing. Too convincing. Caelan's instinct screamed. Something was wrong, but proving it was another matter entirely. And Seraphine knew it. From across the room, she watched the king carefully. Like a hunter observing a wounded animal. Waiting for weakness. Waiting for hesitation. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Below the palace, Lyra remained imprisoned. Yet something had changed. Hope. A dangerous thing. A painful thing. The worst thing possible for someone facing execution. Because hope gave suffering something to destroy. The king's visits continued. And despite herself, she began waiting for them. Hating herself for it. Fearing it. Needing it. Every evening she listened for footsteps. Every evening she told herself it meant nothing. Every evening she lied. The dungeon door opened. Her heart betrayed her instantly. Caelan entered. The Black Hound followed. As always, the beast settled outside her cell.
Guarding.
Watching. Waiting. The king approached the bars. Neither spoke immediately. The silence felt different now. Not uncomfortable. Heavy.
Charged.
Like thunder waiting to break. Finally Caelan extended something through the bars. A small object wrapped in cloth. Lyra frowned. What is it? Open it. Carefully she unfolded the fabric. Inside rested fresh bread. Still warm. For a moment she simply stared. The sight hurt more than hunger ever could. Because nobody had shown her kindness in months. The gesture was so small. So simple. And somehow it shattered every defense she had left. Her eyes lifted slowly. Why? Caelan looked away first. A mistake he immediately regretted. Because kings were never supposed to look uncertain. You haven't been eating. The answer felt inadequate. Yet Lyra understood. The concern hidden beneath it. The awkwardness. The effort. Something tightened painfully inside her chest. For the first time since her imprisonment, she smiled. A real smile. Not forced. Not bitter.
Real.
Caelan froze. The expression transformed her. And suddenly the dungeon seemed brighter. Dangerous realization. Very dangerous. Because beautiful things made men weak. And Caelan could not afford weakness. Days passed. The investigation continued. The court grew more divided. Meanwhile, the distance between king and prisoner slowly disappeared. One evening Caelan brought her above ground. Secretly. Under heavy guard. Only for an hour. Only within the palace gardens. Yet for Lyra, it felt like freedom. The moment she stepped into sunlight, she stopped breathing. Golden light touched her skin. Wind moved through her hair. Birds sang somewhere beyond the palace walls. Simple things. Ordinary things. Things prison had turned into miracles. She closed her eyes. The warmth felt overwhelming. Beautiful. Painful. Caelan watched silently. Something inside him softened. The sight reminded him of a flower surviving beneath snow. Broken, yet somehow alive. Lyra opened her eyes. The king stood several feet away. Watching. Always watching. Thank you. The words barely rose above a whisper. Caelan said nothing. Because gratitude felt undeserved. Because she should never have been imprisoned in the first place. Because every day she remained in chains felt increasingly wrong. The realization disturbed him.
Deeply.
Weeks passed. And so did the barriers between them. Caelan showed her hidden places inside the palace. Ancient libraries. Forgotten gardens. Moonlit balconies overlooking the kingdom. Places nobody else entered. Places nobody else knew. Trust formed slowly.
Carefully.
Like fragile glass. One crack away from shattering. Lyra learned things no noble ever saw. The king's exhaustion. His insomnia. His loneliness. The grief he carried like armor. Caelan learned things too. Her resilience. Her compassion. Her stubborn refusal to surrender. The strength hidden beneath gentleness. The attraction between them became impossible to ignore. Yet neither spoke it aloud. Because speaking it would make it real. And reality had consequences. Dangerous consequences. Especially in a kingdom where power devoured love. Lady Seraphine saw everything. And hated every moment. The king smiled more. Rarely. But enough. His nightmares lessened. His temper improved. His attention drifted. Toward Lyra. Always toward Lyra. The realization poisoned Seraphine's thoughts.
Years.
She had spent years positioning herself beside the throne. Years earning influence. Years building alliances. And now a prisoner threatened everything. An omega. A nobody. A girl from nowhere. Unacceptable. So Seraphine prepared her masterpiece. The lie that would destroy them both. The forged letters arrived first. One delivered anonymously to Lyra. Another placed carefully where Caelan would discover it. Lyra unfolded the parchment with trembling hands. Every word felt like a blade. The letter claimed Caelan never cared. claimed her protection was political theater, claimed she was merely a tool to strengthen his authority. Nothing more, nothing less. Her heart resisted immediately, yet doubt slipped through the cracks. Small,
Poisonous.
persistent. Meanwhile, Caelan discovered different letters. Messages supposedly written by Lyra. Secret correspondence with enemy territories. Military information. Political secrets. Evidence of treason. His stomach twisted.
No.
Impossible. Yet the documents appeared authentic.
Perfectly authentic.
And that was precisely the problem, because perfect evidence rarely existed. But doubt did not require certainty, only possibility. And possibility was enough. For the first time, suspicion entered the bond between them, not because they believed the lies, because they feared wanting the truth too badly. That evening they met beneath a moonlit balcony. Neither smiled, neither relaxed. The warmth between them felt distant. Wounded, Lyra looked away first. Caelan noticed. Caelan hesitated. Lyra noticed. The silence stretched. Painfully. Something was changing. Something breaking. Neither knew how to stop it. Far away, hidden in darkness, Seraphine watched. Satisfied. The trap was working. Trust was cracking. And once trust broke, love would follow. Later that night, a royal investigator arrived outside the king's chambers. Breathing hard. Face pale. Hands shaking. My king. Caelan looked up. The man presented a sealed document. New evidence. Freshly discovered. Impossible to ignore. Slowly Caelan opened it. Read the contents. And felt the blood drain from his face. Because what he held appeared undeniable.
Proof.
Absolute proof. That Lyra Ashmore had betrayed the crown. And for the first time since meeting her, the Alpha King wondered if his heart had made him blind. Winter arrived the same day Lyra lost everything. Snow fell across Blackthorn Palace like ashes from a dying world. White covered rooftops. White covered roads. White covered the kingdom. Yet nothing felt pure. Not anymore. Because lies had finally won. The throne room stood silent beneath towering black pillars. Hundreds of nobles gathered to witness judgment. The atmosphere felt heavy, like the moment before an executioner's blade falls. No one spoke. No one moved. At the center of the chamber stood Lyra. Chains circled her wrists once more. The sight alone made Caelan feel sick. Weeks ago he had walked beside her through moonlit gardens. Now she stood before him as a prisoner again. The distance between them felt unbearable. Yet the king's face revealed nothing. Because kings survived by hiding pain. And Caelan had spent his entire life surviving. The forged evidence lay before him. Letters. Witness testimonies. Reports. Every piece pointed toward betrayal. Every piece screamed guilt. And still, something inside him refused to believe it. His wolf refused to believe it. But a king could not rule by instinct. Not when an entire kingdom watched. Not when civil unrest threatened the realm. Not when enemies waited beyond the borders. Duty demanded sacrifice. Even when the sacrifice destroyed him. Lyra stared at him from across the throne room, searching his face. Searching for the man who brought her bread. The man who listened. The man who looked at her as if she mattered. Instead, she found only the Alpha King.
Cold. Silent.
Distant. The realization broke something inside her. The verdict had already been decided. Not by evidence. Not by truth. By fear. And fear always won. Caelan finally stood. Every noble straightened. Every breath stopped. The king's voice echoed through the chamber. Lyra Ashmore. The sound of her name hurt. More than chains. More than imprisonment. More than death. Because she could hear hesitation beneath his words. And hesitation meant he doubted her. After everything. After every conversation. After every moment. He doubted her. The wound cut deeper than any blade. Caelan forced himself to continue. The crimes presented before this court placed the kingdom at risk. His jaw tightened. Every word tasted like poison. The sentence is exile. Gasps erupted across the room. Even nobles appeared surprised. Many expected execution. Others demanded it. Exile was mercy. Exile was weakness. Exile was personal. And everyone understood exactly why. Lyra closed her eyes. For one brief moment she simply stood there. Still. Silent.
Heartbroken.
Then she laughed. A small laugh. Empty. Devastating. When her eyes opened again, tears shimmered there. Not falling. Refusing to fall. I understand. Caelan almost stepped forward. Almost. But kings were not allowed almost. Kings made decisions. And lived with consequences. The guards approached. Lyra turned away. She never looked back. That hurt more than anything. Because Caelan suddenly realized he would have preferred hatred. Hatred meant she still cared. This silence felt worse. This silence felt final. The palace gates opened beneath a gray sky. Snow drifted through the wind. The kingdom watched. Citizens lined the streets. Some cheered. Some cursed. Some simply stared. The disgraced Omega was leaving. The traitor. The prisoner. The girl everyone blamed. Nobody noticed the tears freezing against her skin. Nobody noticed her heart breaking. Nobody except one creature. The Black Hound. The beast stood beside the gates. Growling. Restless. Refusing to move. As if it understood what humans could not. Lyra paused beside it. The animal pressed its head gently against her hand. A farewell. A promise. A warning. She swallowed hard. Then stepped beyond the gates. And disappeared into the storm. The hound howled. A long, haunting sound that echoed across the kingdom. Inside the palace, Caelan heard it. The sound shattered something inside him. Because it sounded exactly how he felt. Alone. The weeks that followed became a nightmare. The king stopped sleeping. Nightmares returned stronger than ever.
Blood.
Fire.
Death. Loss.
Every night. Every hour. Every moment. Without Lyra, the darkness returned. Worse than before. His wolf became violent. Unstable. Rage simmered beneath every interaction. Servants feared approaching him. Generals avoided speaking unless necessary.
Even the Black Hound changed.
The beast searched palace corridors constantly. Searching for someone no longer there. Searching for a scent that had vanished. The entire kingdom felt the shift. The Alpha King was becoming a monster again. And nobody knew how to stop it. Far beyond Blackthorn's borders, Lyra fought simply to survive. Winter showed no mercy. Neither did the wilderness. Food became scarce. Shelter became difficult. Loneliness became unbearable. Many nights, she cried herself to sleep beside dying campfires. Many mornings she questioned whether continuing mattered. The pain followed her everywhere. Caelan's face, his voice, his betrayal. The memory refused to fade. Some wounds preferred remaining open. But suffering changes people. Sometimes it destroys them. Sometimes it transforms them. Lyra transformed. Slowly, painfully, beautifully. One night, everything changed. The moon rose enormous above frozen mountains. Silver light covered the forest. Ancient, otherworldly, alive. Lyra stood alone beside a frozen lake when she heard voices. Not human voices. Older. Whispers carried by the wind. Whispers speaking her name. The air trembled. The lake glowed. Moonlight gathered around her feet. Power surged through her veins. Wild. Ancient. Impossible. She collapsed to her knees. Visions exploded behind her eyes. Women crowned in silver. Wolves formed from starlight. Forgotten queens. Ancient kingdoms. Lost bloodlines.
Truth.
At last, truth. Lyra discovered who she really was. Not merely an Omega. Not merely a prisoner. She carried the blood of the Moon Sovereigns. A forgotten royal lineage older than every kingdom on the continent. Power slept inside her. Waiting. Watching. Awakening. And now it had finally opened its eyes. Months passed. The frightened girl disappeared. Someone stronger emerged. Someone wiser. Someone dangerous. Lyra learned to command moon magic. Learned to survive. Learned to fight. Learned to lead. Her confidence grew. Her presence changed. The broken Omega became something far greater. The world had abandoned her, so she learned how to stand alone. And once she learned that, nobody could break her again. Back in Blackthorn Palace, Caelan finally discovered the first inconsistency. A date that did not match. A witness whose testimony changed. A report containing impossible details. Small things. Tiny things. But lies always cracked eventually. The king began investigating personally. Day after day. Night after night. The deeper he searched, the worse the truth became. Because every answer led toward one horrifying conclusion. Lyra had never betrayed him. Not once. Not ever. The realization hit like a sword through his chest. Everything stopped. Every memory returned. Her smile. Her trust. Her heartbreak. The way she looked at him when he exiled her.
Gods.
What had he done? For the first time in years, Caelan Draven dropped to his knees. Not before enemies. Not before nobles. Not before fate. Before guilt. Because the woman who healed him was innocent, and he had destroyed her himself. 3 nights later, a royal witness requested a private audience. The man arrived bleeding, terrified, barely alive. Guards rushed him inside. Caelan immediately recognized him, one of the key witnesses against Lyra. The man's hands trembled violently. Blood stained his clothing. Fear consumed him. My king. Caelan stepped closer. What happened? The witness coughed blood. His eyes widened with panic, as if death stood directly behind him, because perhaps it did. They know I talked.
Who?
The man grabbed Caelan's arm.
Desperate. Broken. Dying.
Then he whispered the words that changed everything. Words that shattered the final illusion. Words that turned suspicion into certainty. Seraphine. Blood spilled from his lips. Lady Seraphine planned everything. The chamber froze. The witness's body collapsed. Dead before it touched the floor. Silence followed.
Cold.
Terrible silence. Caelan stared at the corpse. Then toward the palace window. Toward the distant horizon. Toward the wilderness where Lyra had vanished. Because now he understood. The woman he trusted had betrayed him. The woman he exiled had loved him. And somewhere beyond the kingdom, the Omega he broke was becoming powerful enough to change the world. Magic collided with magic. Moonlight burst from Lyra's hands. Silver energy illuminated the ruins. Ancient power awakened completely. The blood of forgotten queens roared through her veins. Across the cathedral, Seraphine unleashed darkness fueled by rage and obsession. Stone shattered. Columns collapsed. The storm itself seemed alive. Meanwhile, Caelan fought through waves of mercenaries hidden within the ruins. Every strike carried terrifying precision. Every movement protected one person. Lyra. Always Lyra. Not the throne. Not the kingdom. Her. For years duty had ruled his life. Tonight love did. And that terrified him less than losing her. The cathedral began collapsing. Massive cracks split the floor. Fire erupted from broken runes. Rain poured through the ruined ceiling. The chaos consumed everything. Then Seraphine made her final move. She trapped Lyra beneath collapsing stone. At the same moment, a second collapse threatened the ancient throne relic powering the kingdom's magical defenses. Only one could be saved. Lyra, or the throne. The entire kingdom's future hung upon that choice. Seraphine laughed, victory shining in her eyes. Choose, Alpha. Caelan looked toward the relic, then toward Lyra. No hesitation, no doubt, no fear. For the first time in his life, he chose love. The throne could burn, the crown could shatter, the kingdom could judge him. None of it mattered. Without Lyra, none of it meant anything. He ran toward her. The decision shattered Seraphine's final illusion, because she finally understood. She had spent years pursuing power. Yet power had never been the thing that made kings strong. Love was. And she would never possess it. The realization destroyed her. A final collapse consumed the cathedral. Stone. Fire. Thunder. Darkness. Then silence. Dawn arrived slowly. Soft golden light touched the kingdom. The storm had passed. The war was over. Seraphine's empire of lies lay buried beneath ruins. Her conspiracies exposed. Her followers captured. Her reign of manipulation ended forever. And for the first time in years, peace returned. Weeks later, the great hall filled with nobles, soldiers, and citizens. Everyone gathered to witness history. Not a coronation. Something far more important. Healing. At the center of the hall stood Lyra. No chains. No accusations. No fear. Only strength. The kingdom looked at her differently now. Not as a prisoner. Not as an Omega. As their queen. Slowly Caelan approached. The feared Alpha King. The conqueror. The monster of Blackthorn. The ruler who once terrified continents. And before the entire kingdom, he knelt. Gasps filled the hall. Not in weakness. Not in surrender. In devotion. In love. In respect. His voice carried across the chamber. You saved me. Emotion tightened his throat. You saved this kingdom. His eyes never left hers. And if you'll allow it, the king smiled. A real smile.
Rare.
Beautiful.
Human.
I would spend the rest of my life earning the trust one once broke. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. This time she did not hide them. Because some endings deserved honesty. Some endings deserved hope. Slowly she offered her hand.
Caelan took it.
The hall erupted.
Cheers.
Applause. Relief.
Joy.
The beginning of something new. And beside the throne rested a massive black hound. Older.
Scarred.
Loyal. Golden eyes watching quietly. The same hound that once lay outside a forgotten prison cell for 6 days. The first witness to a destiny nobody understood. The first guardian of a bond powerful enough to survive betrayal, exile, war, and heartbreak. And as the kingdom celebrated its new future, the hound finally closed its eyes and rested. Its duty was complete, because the girl it protected had become a queen. And the monster it served had finally become a man.
Sparkles the end.
That was the worst part. Love remained, but trust did not. And trust was much harder to rebuild. That evening chaos erupted throughout the capital. Because Lyra did not return alone. She returned with proof. Documents. Witnesses. Evidence. Enough to expose years of corruption hidden inside Blackthorn's highest ranks. One by one, powerful nobles fell. Secret alliances surfaced. Bribes emerged. Conspiracies unraveled. Entire political networks collapsed overnight. The kingdom watched in shock. The Omega they once condemned was dismantling the corruption they ignored for decades. Meanwhile, Seraphine watched everything from her private chambers. And for the first time, she felt fear. Real fear. The kind she had spent years creating inside others. Her carefully constructed empire was cracking. Every exposed secret weakened her. Every revealed lie threatened her survival. Every moment Lyra remained alive increased the danger. Seraphine's reflection stared back from a silver mirror. Beautiful.
Perfect.
Terrified. Because monsters always believe they are untouchable. Until someone survives them. Night fell over Blackthorn. The palace prepared for war. Not against foreign enemies. Against hidden enemies within. Caelan and Lyra worked together for the first time since her return. Old maps covered tables. Investigation reports filled entire rooms. Soldiers carried orders through corridors. And somewhere inside the chaos, something unexpected happened.
Partnership. Slow.
Fragile. Painful. But real. Neither trusted completely. Neither forgave completely. Yet necessity forced them together. Hour after hour. Conversation after conversation. The distance between them slowly shifted. Not disappearing. Changing. Healing. One crack at a time. Then the attack came. Without warning. A palace window shattered. An arrow tore through the darkness. A soldier fell instantly. Dead before hitting the floor. Another arrow. Then another. Screams erupted throughout the corridor. Assassins. Everywhere. Chaos exploded. Steel clashed against steel. Guards rushed forward. Nobles fled. Blood-stained marble floors. Caelan immediately moved. Instinct. Pure instinct. He stepped directly in front of Lyra, shielding her, protecting her. The movement happened so quickly neither consciously thought about it. Yet everyone saw. Everyone understood. The Alpha King's priorities had changed. A blade flew from the darkness. Caelan caught it inches from Lyra's throat. His wolf erupted. Violence exploded through the room. Several assassins never reached the door alive. The attack ended quickly. But the message remained. Someone was desperate. Someone was losing control. And desperate enemies were the most dangerous kind. Hours later the palace counted casualties. Several guards dead. Multiple nobles injured. Fear spreading rapidly. Caelan stood beside a balcony, overlooking the city. The moon hung high above the kingdom. Silver light covered everything. For a moment peace almost existed. Then Lyra joined him. Neither spoke immediately. The silence felt familiar. Like old memories. Like old wounds. Finally Caelan turned. If I could change it, his voice broke. Just slightly. Enough. I would. Lyra stared toward the city lights. Toward the kingdom that once abandoned her. Toward the future neither could predict. I know. The answer surprised him. Because she meant it. She truly knew. The realization hurt almost as much as forgiveness. Then suddenly the black hound began barking. Violently. Aggressively.
Wrong.
Both turned immediately. The beast raced into darkness. Something had happened. Something terrible. Moments later a wounded soldier appeared. Face pale. Breathing hard. My king. The man collapsed to one knee. What is it? The soldier swallowed. Fear filled his eyes. Pure fear. The hound. Silence fell. The hound has been taken. Caelan froze. Lyra's heart dropped. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, Lady Seraphine smiled. Because the final trap had finally been set. The storm arrived before midnight. Black clouds consumed the sky above Blackthorn Palace. Lightning split the heavens apart. Thunder rolled across the kingdom like the roar of ancient gods awakening from forgotten graves. The city below trembled beneath sheets of rain. Torches flickered. Church bells rang. And somewhere within the darkness, war finally began. Caelan stood at the center of the war chamber. The report lay open before him. The Black Hound had vanished. Witnesses were dead. Guards slaughtered. Tracks deliberately erased. Only one clue remained. A silver seal. The personal crest of Lady Seraphine Valeries. The room fell silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. Everyone understood. The final mask had fallen. The enemy was no longer hiding. And that enemy had just stolen the one creature both Caelan and Lyra loved. The king's jaw tightened. Rage burned behind his eyes. Not the reckless rage of a wounded alpha. Something colder. Something deadlier. Purpose. Across the room, Lyra stared at the silver seal. The sight filled her with dread. Because she understood Seraphine better than anyone. Manipulators never attacked randomly. Every move had meaning. Every action served a larger design. The hound was bait. And they were the prey. A servant rushed into the chamber. My king. A sealed letter. Freshly delivered. Caelan opened it immediately. One sentence waited inside. One sentence written in Seraphine's elegant handwriting. Come alone if you want the beast alive. At the bottom sat a second line. One designed specifically for Lyra. Or watch everyone you love die again. Silence followed. Heavy. Dangerous. Then Lyra stood. I'm going. Caelan's eyes snapped toward her.
No.
The answer came instantly. Absolute. Alpha command. The kind that once made armies kneel. Yet Lyra simply met his gaze. Unmoved. Months ago she might have obeyed. Months ago she might have doubted herself. Not anymore. She wants me. Exactly. Then running changes nothing. Lightning flashed outside. Silver light illuminated both faces. The king and the woman who had once been his prisoner. For a moment neither looked away. Power shifted between them. Not dominance. Not submission. Something else. Equality. At last. And Caelan realized something profound. The frightened Omega was gone. The woman standing before him was strong enough to choose her own fate. Even if that fate terrified him, the trap waited inside the ruins of Moonfall Cathedral, an ancient sanctuary abandoned centuries ago. Broken towers pierced the storm. Cracked statues watched from darkness. Rain poured through shattered ceilings. The entire structure looked haunted.
Cursed.
Forgotten. Exactly the kind of place Seraphine would choose. Lyra entered first. Moonlight and lightning danced across ancient stone. Every instinct warned her to turn back. Yet she continued forward. Because the Black Hound had waited 6 days outside her cell. Because loyalty deserved loyalty. Because love required courage. A low whine echoed through the darkness.
The Hound. Alive.
Relief surged through her. Then she saw him. The massive black beast chained at the center of the cathedral. Injured. Exhausted. But alive. Golden eyes immediately found her. The Hound struggled against its restraints. A desperate warning. Too late. Slow applause echoed through the ruins. Lady Seraphine stepped from the shadows. Beautiful as ever. Terrifying as ever. Rain glistened across silver silk. Her smile never reached her eyes. At last. Lyra's expression hardened. Let him go. Seraphine laughed. The sound felt wrong. Broken.
Mad.
You still think this was about the animal? Lightning illuminated the cathedral. For the first time, Lyra truly saw her enemy. Not a queen. Not a noblewoman. A desperate woman losing everything. And desperation had transformed her into something dangerous. You ruined years of work. Seraphine's voice trembled. Not with fear. With hatred. Do you know what I sacrificed for that throne? The cathedral seemed to darken around her. I built alliances. I destroyed rivals. I made kings obey. And then you appeared. Her gaze sharpened. Pure venom. A prisoner. An omega. Nothing. Yet somehow he chose you. At last the truth emerged. Not power. Not politics. Jealousy. Obsessive jealousy. The oldest poison of all. A second presence entered the cathedral. Heavy footsteps. Familiar.
Caelan. Of course he came.
The Alpha King emerged from the storm like a living shadow. Rain soaked his black cloak. His eyes glowed with barely restrained fury. The moment he saw Lyra unharmed, relief flashed across his face. Only briefly, but it was there. Seraphine smiled.
Perfect.
Everything was unfolding exactly as she wanted. Wonderful. Her voice echoed. Now we're complete. The cathedral floor suddenly erupted with ancient symbols. Magic. Old magic. Forbidden magic. Runes ignited across broken stone. Walls trembled. The entire structure groaned. Lyra immediately understood. Seraphine had rigged the cathedral to collapse. Not just kill them. Destroy everything. If I cannot rule this kingdom, Seraphine whispered, then nobody will. Thunder exploded overhead. The final battle began. Magic collided with magic. Moonlight burst from Lyra's hands. Silver energy illuminated the ruins. Ancient power awakened completely. The blood of forgotten queens roared through her veins. Across the cathedral, Seraphine unleashed darkness fueled by rage and obsession. Stone shattered. Columns collapsed. The storm itself seemed alive. Meanwhile, Caelan fought through waves of mercenaries hidden within the ruins. Every strike carried terrifying precision. Every movement protected one person. Lyra. Always Lyra. Not the throne. Not the kingdom. Her. For years duty had ruled his life. Tonight love did. And that terrified him less than losing her. The cathedral began collapsing. Massive cracks split the floor. Fire erupted from broken runes. Rain poured through the ruined ceiling. The chaos consumed everything. Then Seraphine made her final move. She trapped Lyra beneath collapsing stone. At the same moment, a second collapse threatened the ancient throne relic powering the kingdom's magical defenses. Only one could be saved. Lyra, or the throne. The entire kingdom's future hung upon that choice. Seraphine laughed, victory shining in her eyes. Choose, Alpha. Caelan looked toward the relic, then toward Lyra. No hesitation. No doubt. No fear. For the first time in his life, he chose love. The throne could burn. The crown could shatter. The kingdom could judge him. None of it mattered. Without Lyra, none of it meant anything. He ran toward her. The decision shattered Seraphine's final illusion, because she finally understood. She had spent years pursuing power. Yet power had never been the thing that made King strong. Love was. And she would never possess it. The realization destroyed her. A final collapse consumed the cathedral. Stone.
Fire.
Thunder. Darkness. Then silence. Dawn arrived slowly. Soft golden light touched the kingdom. The storm had passed. The war was over. Seraphine's empire of lies lay buried beneath ruins. Her conspiracies exposed. Her followers captured. Her reign of manipulation ended forever. And for the first time in years, peace returned. Weeks later, the great hall filled with nobles, soldiers, and citizens. Everyone gathered to witness history. Not a coronation. Something far more important. Healing. At the center of the hall stood Lyra. No chains. No accusations. No fear. Only strength. The kingdom looked at her differently now. Not as a prisoner. Not as an Omega. As their queen. Slowly Caelan approached. The feared Alpha King. The conqueror. The monster of Blackthorn. The ruler who once terrified continents. And before the entire kingdom, he knelt. Gasps filled the hall. Not in weakness. Not in surrender. In devotion. In love. In respect. His voice carried across the chamber. You saved me. Emotion tightened his throat. You saved this kingdom. His eyes never left hers. And if you'll allow it, the king smiled. A real smile.
Rare.
Beautiful.
Human.
I would spend the rest of my life earning the trust one once broke. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. This time she did not hide them. Because some endings deserved honesty. Some endings deserved hope. Slowly she offered her hand.
Caelan took it.
The hall erupted.
Cheers.
Applause. Relief.
Joy.
The beginning of something new. And beside the throne rested a massive black hound. Older.
Scarred.
Loyal. Golden eyes watching quietly. The same hound that once lay outside a forgotten prison cell for 6 days. The first witness to a destiny nobody understood. The first guardian of a bond powerful enough to survive betrayal, exile, war, and heartbreak. And as the kingdom celebrated its new future, the hound finally closed its eyes and rested. Its duty was complete, because the girl it protected had become a queen. And the monster it served had finally become man.
Sparkles the end.